Governor, how tough has it been this week juggling looking after Lee County and overseeing the recovery efforts there, and your duties back here in Montgomery with a special session starting?
It's been a pretty heavy lift. I mean, it's one thing you go to Lee County and you have a horrendous emotional experience witnessing where so many people were injured and died, and then you have to come back in the same afternoon and meet with legislators and talk about the need for infrastructure funding. It's personally, it's difficult.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about your infrastructure bill. Rebuild Alabama, as it has been called. Let me begin by asking you, was this a tough call for you to make? Raising taxes is not a popular issue.
Anything that's hard to do is never popular among people. But when I was faced with the decision whether or not I was going to seek a full term or not, I knew that there were some tough issues that had to be addressed. Somebody had to do it. And when I finally reached in my heart of hearts, I said, well, if I won't do it, why not? And if I won't do it, who will? Somebody's got to do it. And so after some good solid prayer and soul searching, I said, I'll take the step, and I'll do my best to build on the successes that we've had. And goodness knows we've had some, but I'll also be willing to confront the unpopular and long neglected issues as well. And so we started with the infrastructure funding, and I'm proud of the vote that came out on Thursday of this week from the House of Representatives Committee on Transportation. It was a unanimous vote to move forward with a yes vote, and that's good momentum.
Mm-hmm. Have you heard a lot of pushback as you've been meeting with lawmakers, or has it been sort of balanced?
Well, there has been pushback, and like you say, nobody wants taxes, but at the same time, all of our sister states around us have added to their infrastructure transportation budgets, and Alabama has not. In fact, it's been 27 years since we last made a change to our funding for infrastructure. So it's time for Alabama to do this. It's the right thing to do because it addresses safety issues, economic development issues, community needs, and it's just the right thing to do for the people of Alabama. So I'm proud that we're underway with the effort, and I look forward to the House passing it, and then we'll move to the Senate.
Governor, we have a lot of new lawmakers this year, and a lot has been made of how tough a decision this would be for them, particularly given they've just been elected and they're answering to their constituents back home. But you have made a real strong point of making sure that lawmakers have been informed every step of the way as you've promoted this plan.
Well, in fact, on the new members, House and Senate, were vetted, if you will, by leadership of those two houses while they were thinking about running, and if anybody was not willing to address the issue, they weren't encouraged to seek office. So none of the new members were unfamiliar with this topic. And yes, we've included the freshman House and Senate, both parties, in meetings that I've had and continue to have, and will continue to do so.
Now, a lot of these same lawmakers, new or veterans, are saying they've got to answer to their constituents on this issue, and versus the needs of the state as you have painted for them in your Rebuild Alabama proposal. I guess there's a recognition on your part that that's a difficult position for them to be in.
Well, certainly, but at the same time, each one of these new House and Senate members got elected. People expect them to get information that they don't have, to bring it back and to explain it to them, and most of our legislators have done that. It is so easy to say, well, I'm just going to listen to my constituents, but you know, the constituents don't have the benefit of all the information that has been provided to legislators, and a legislator would be really effective who has been chosen as a leader needs to take this information on whatever the subject and inform the people and say, look, this makes sense. Our area, like you, will benefit. So there's a responsibility about elected people too.
I know there had to be in this conversation a lot of reaching across the political aisle to bring your gas tax bill to light. You've been meeting with Democratic lawmakers as well.
Well, and as I met with Anthony Daniels, the minority leader in the House, last January in Huntsville, and I talked with him then about the need for us to address certain issues in a bipartisan fashion, because certainly there are issues that affect all people of Alabama, whether it's the roads or whether it's health care and other issues. And on those issues, there ought not be a partisan separation. We ought to be bipartisan and look out for the people of Alabama.
I've noticed on social media in the last several days since you released your bill last week that they've been posting, lawmakers have been posting the bill to their social media accounts, getting feedback from voters. Been an interesting dialogue. Have you been following any of that?
You never know who's responding to a Facebook thing or
right.
a tweet or whatever,
Right.
So I try to deal with them face to face.
This problem, as you have alluded to many times, has been a long time coming. 1992 was the last time that Alabama raised the fuel tax for our infrastructure needs. When you rolled out your plan a week or so ago, you did so at a rural bridge site in Chilton County, which is so aged that school buses can't safely pass over it. You say that's just one of many instances.
In fact, we've got some 16,000 bridges in Alabama, and over half of them are older than their 50-year lifespan. And in fact, now counties replace a bridge every 186 years. That's almost as long as we've been a state. And that makes no sense. So we need to pay attention to our roads and bridges, and also to our port of Mobile, the only deep water port that we have in the state. And we need to widen the channel and deepen that so it can accommodate the bigger cargo ships that come in, because Alabama is indeed an industrial and agricultural hub in southeastern United States.
And to those who would argue that the port isn't a vital part of our infrastructure, I think you would argue that it is.
Oh, it's definitely that part of it. Everybody does crops in Alabama, wants to send those crops somewhere. There are imports and exports that go out of our state, all over the state, that affect all of us.
Governor, too, we're hoping that Congress at some point might pass an infrastructure bill, and if they do, Alabama's in a good position to get a lot of money.
If we've got the match.
If we've got the match.
And so that's another major reason why we need to address this bill now and get enough infrastructure money so we can participate in that.
Senator Shelby, of course, serving as the chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, doesn't hurt us either, right?
That's an ace in the hole. We are grateful to Senator Shelby and his leadership.
Indeed. Senator, Governor, one of the things you alluded to in your State of the State address this week was that this diversion of money from the Transportation Department for a number of years now, some $63 million, which was being diverted from DOT to the court system and to law enforcement. You wanted to cut that diversion in half, but you said you did so in a way that wouldn't hurt either the courts or law enforcement.
Correct. That's an outdated approach to funding the courts or LEA, law enforcement agency. So I've cut that 63 in half, leaving one half with LDOT for LEA, and leaving the other half with LDOT, period. Mm-hmm. We're changing the CHIPS program from being funded in the general fund to be funded by the Education Trust Fund budget, and that will free up money in the general fund to replace the court costs. So the courts are going to be fine, LEA is going to be fine, CHIPS is going to be fine. And those changes were made in the budgets that I've submitted to the legislature, or will submit up when the regular session gets back going.
Right. The CHIPS program, of course, the Children's Health Insurance Program, and that alone, making that change will be a huge difference, don't you think? Moving it from the general fund to the Education Trust Fund.
Right.
You didn't unveil